What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Appreciate you joining me today. Today, I want to go over a topic that I feel like is semi-important. If you've heard me talk about, great players in the past, one of the things that I've mentioned quite a few times is that personally, I believe that it is your great players that ultimately get you to the promised land and ultimately win you a Super Bowl. I've gone back to that 2010 and that 1996 Packer teams. Yeah, I think you don't have to look further than the Rams last year, where I think a handful of insanely talented players led by Aaron Donald really got the Rams over the hump and into the promised land. So I always look at your high-end talented players, your great players. How many do you have? Are they at your key positions? And can those players ultimately win you a Super Bowl? Well, today I want to define which players that I think are great. And then more importantly, my main topic is I want to go over which players I think can go from good to great. So we already know that they're really good players, but can they get to that level of greatness where we're talking about Pro Bowl / All-Pro players? So in order to do that, I think we first need to define which players on the Packers have that greatness already. And clearly here, there is degrees of greatness, right? On one spectrum, you've got Aaron Rodgers, who is the back-to-back MVP of the league. He bleeds greatness. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. That is the epitome of a great player. I think you could make an argument on like an Aaron Jones on this list, maybe an Adrian Amos, maybe a couple others that are in the realm of really, 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 really good and maybe just outside the realm of greatness. I'm including them on the greatness list here. I think they're in that realm. And I think ultimately all of these players, Green Bay needs to be great if they want to make a legitimate run at the Super Bowl. So here is my list of already great players. That includes Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, if healthy and if coming back as David Bakhtiari, the one we know and remember. Elton Jenkins, once again, if coming back from injury, we know he's going to come back at some point, but if he looks like himself. Rashawn Gary, I think you can make an argument here with Gary that he's just outside of the, level of greatness, but I expect him to absolutely be great this season. I think you can make a strong argument. He was great last season as well. Kenny Clark, Devondre Campbell, if you're a first-team All-Pro, you're definitely in that category. Jair Alexander and Adrian Amos. So Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devondre Campbell, Jair Alexander, and Adrian Amos. 9 total players that I would put already in that level of greatness. One odd sort of honorable mention hat tip that I'll give you a second to think if you can guess who I'm thinking of, that I don't think anyone's probably thinking of at this point. Mercedes Lewis is not a great tight end, all right? He's just not an overall great tight end. There's no question about that. And I wouldn't put him on this list. But I think you can make an argument that he is the greatest blocking tight end, or at least in the level of greatness at blocking tight end in this league. And there's only a handful of those players that you even probably consider. So if you take away the pass catching and you take away that side of things and just go at overall pass protection and run block, I should say blocking tight end, Mercedes Lewis is great at that. So not a great tight end, clearly a great blocking tight end. So honorable mention / hat tip to Mercedes Lewis. I'm not putting him in the level of greatness, but I think you can understand my argument there that if you're narrowing it down into just blocking tight ends, he would be in that list for me as well. The other thing that I want to make a quick mention of here before we go over players that can make that jump to good to great is that rookies can clearly not be on this list. These are players that are going from good already to potentially great. Well, if you're a rookie, we have no litmus for you, right? Like there's no measuring stick. We don't know what you're going to be. So it's not to say that Christian Watson or Devondre Wyatt or Quay Walker or any of these players can't be great. It's just saying that let's get them to good first and let's see what they are before we start putting measuring sticks out for those players. So rookies cannot make this list. And then before I get to my actual list, let me give my honorable mentions here of players that maybe are worth at least keeping an eye on, but I don't think are going to be able to quite hit a level of greatness in 2022. The first would be Preston Smith, and this maybe is the most controversial player on this list. We have seen flashes of greatness from Preston Smith, and he had really nice moments last season. I just think at this point we know exactly what Preston is. He's a very good football player who's going to help your team. He's going to get about 8 to 10 sacks on a season. He's going to provide some pressure. He's probably never going to hit that level of greatness again, but he's a very good football player that is going to help this team win games. So it's no disrespect to Preston Smith, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope he does hit that level of greatness, but either way, very good football player that's helping Green Bay win. The other one here that I'm not including that's definitely worth an honorable mention that I think actually can be great, but doesn't necessarily fit the criteria here is Mason Crosby. And for other reasons, right? I think Mason Crosby can get back to greatness, and I think he can be a great player in 2022. But the list here is players going from good to great, and Mason Crosby was not good a season ago. Part of that was long snapper, part of that was holder, part of that was blocking, part of that was everything around him, right? Not putting it all squarely on Mason Crosby's shoulders, but him and everything surrounding him were bad a season ago. So this isn't which players can go from bad to great. If so, I think Mason Crosby would be the only one on my list. So I do think he can reach a level of greatness again this year, but I don't think he can go from good to great because I don't think he was good a season ago. Next up is Allen Lazard, and I think, again, he's worth an honorable mention here. I don't think Allen quite has the upside and ultimate talent to become a great player in this league. And now we're talking like one of the top wide receivers in this league. I just don't think Allen can get there. That being said, he was an undrafted guy who made a Jaguars practice squad, who then made a Packers roster, who then became the Packers' fifth receiver, who then became the Packers' fourth receiver, who then became the Packers' third receiver, then second receiver. And now it looks like he's going to potentially be their number one wide receiver. So people told him, you're not good enough to be in the league. You're not good enough to be an active roster guy. You're not good enough to be a backup. You're not good enough to be a starter. You're not good enough to be a number one. So who the heck am I? And he's proven all those things wrong so far. So who the heck am I to tell him he can't be great? So maybe there's another level of Allen Lazard that he could get to. That would be pretty freaking amazing. We shall see. He's going to get an opportunity. I don't think he quite has that level of talent, but once again, hope I'm unequivocally and 100% wrong in that assessment. Number 4 is Darnell Savage, and sort of similar to Mason Crosby here. I do think, if you told me that Darnell Savage played great this year, it would not be a surprise to me. If you told me, he clearly, former first round pick, clearly has the talent and athleticism to become a great player. I thought he was close to great in his second season. I thought he was below average in his first season. I thought he was bad last year. So again, I don't think he was good. So you can't go from good to great. I do think there is a level of potential that he has that he could reach all of a sudden. And there's no question about that. So I would love to see him hit that. But right now with Darnell Savage, I just want to see him go from inconsistent to consistent, like inconsistently average to good. If he can be that, that'd be a really nice step in the right direction. If he gets above that and goes to really good or great, phenomenal. Clearly he has the talent to get there. But again, I don't think he quite fits the criteria here. And then the last one on my honorable mention list would be Josh Myers. Once again, I think I don't think Josh Myers was good to really good last year. I think he was really good for a rookie at center. That's how I would sort of define it. But I think overall as a center, he was pretty average, which is, again, as a rookie starting center is really good. So I would put him as average. I think that he probably makes a jump to good to really good this year overall. I think greatness could be in his grasp down the road, but I think that would be a little bit of a stretch in 2022 to get to that. But I think he can become a very, very good, well-rounded center in taking a really decent sized second year jump in this with his Packers offensive line and with the tutelage of Luke Butkus and in some capacity Adam Stenavich as well. So those are my honorable mentions for a variety of reasons: Preston Smith, Mason Crosby, Allen Lazard, Darnell Savage, and Josh Myers. So here is my actual list of 4 players that I think can legitimately make a jump from good to great. And number 1 on that list is A.J. Dillon. Clearly, A.J. Dillon is a very good running back already, very talented. In small sample sizes, we've seen him do very impressive things. Pro Football Focus had him graded incredibly high with his carries a season ago and was very efficient in what he did. He's way better at catching out of the backfield than I think was ever expected. He's a power back. He can run in between the tackles. He can get outside. I think the one thing that's lacking from his game at this point is that explosive playmaking ability. We need to see a little bit more of like, all right, when you get in the open field, can you either, legitimately run a safety over and keep going, or can you make a player miss? And that's, I think, the one thing that's missing from his game is those big, 40, 50, 60-yard gains. And that's one thing I would like to see him take a jump with this upcoming season. But let's just say Aaron Jones missed, a handful, 8 games, something like that. We saw against Tennessee 2 years ago exactly what he's capable of when he is the guy. There's no question in my mind, if he gets a handful of games to be the guy and is the one that's getting the consistent carries, that he couldn't have 120 to 140 yards per game with a touchdown or two. Like, he has everything that you need to be a great running back in this league. I think if he gets that opportunity, he could go from good to great. I think he's going to need that opportunity and again, probably get a little bit more consistent snaps. There was a part of me last year that felt like Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon at times were almost counterproductive to one another, where just when it felt like Jones was getting going, they would bring Dillon in. And then just when it felt like Dillon was getting going, they would bring Jones back. And it just felt like both of these guys, like, I almost feel like it would be better if, like, week one, you're like, all right, week one is Aaron Jones's game and A.J. Dillon's going to get like 15% of the snaps. And then week two is A.J. Dillon's game and Aaron Jones is going to get 15% of the snap, whatever. Like, I would like to see those two play more together. You get that. But like, just as like the primary back, right? So like 85-15 Jones, then 85-15 Dillon, rather than 50-50 Jones and Dillon in any one game where neither of them really get that momentum going. I'd almost rather you split it in a different way so that it ends up being sort of 50-50 through the course of the season, but both of those guys get a little bit more run and can gain some momentum through the course of the game. But if A.J. Dillon gets that opportunity, there's no question in my mind that he can go from good to great. Number 2 might be the player that I feel pretty strongly about can make this jump, and he has work to do. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but I really liked his tape last year, and I think I was higher on him than almost anyone. I had him graded as the best offensive lineman, like, overall on the Packers, mostly like that played the whole year, right? Obviously, Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari were out for a good chunk. Well, Bakhtiari the whole season, basically. Jenkins the good chunk of the season. But the player that was there and consistent for the entirety of the season was Jon Runyan Jr., and I really legitimately believe in his second year as a full-time starter at left guard, he can make that jump from good to great and really become that next TJ Lang, Josh Sitton, Marco Rivera, Adam Timmerman, etc. He has the bloodline. He has the talent. His tape was really good a season ago. He needs to be a bit more consistent. You will see him dominate at times and then almost just like kind of let his foot off the gas a little bit and like almost just kind of get on cruise control. If he can just maintain a little bit higher level of focus and maintain that consistency through the course of the game, he has the ability to be a Pro Bowl caliber guard in this league. And I think this could be the year that he legitimately takes that jump. Number 3 on the list is Rasul Douglas. And that might seem utterly crazy, from picking him up off of a practice squad from Arizona a season ago to maybe getting some playing time here and there, to getting legitimate playing time, to being a starter, to the pick sixes, to the like, and now getting the new contract. I've been keeping a close eye on him. To me, this was not a fluke. To me, Rasul Douglas is a very good cornerback that found his home, not dissimilar from Devondre Campbell, who had the upside and talent always, but just needed the right opportunity in the right spot, and he got that in Green Bay. Rasul Douglas feels the exact same way. And I think there's still a ways for Douglas to go, meaning that he can even be better than what he showed in I guess somewhat of a limited capacity a season ago. I know he ended up being basically a full-time starter for them, but I think he can do that and more over the course of a full season and playoffs. So I think Douglas can get to great. I really, really do. And I think he is going to end up being a steal on that contract. He's been so impressive in his time in Green Bay, and I really see that continuing. And then last but not least is another corner, and that's clearly Eric Stokes. First round pick a season ago, already has, I think, exceeded the expectations that were set from a year ago. He's going to have to continue that, right? You need to stack success year after year. It's not just game after game. And it's easy for young players that have all the talent in the world, who have successful rookie seasons, to put things on cruise control a little bit and be like, this NFL thing's not that hard. If he can continue to master his craft and work at it, there's no reason he can't be a legitimate number 1 corner in this league, and which would just be saying something, because we just talked about Rasul Douglas. Clearly, Jair Alexander is potentially the number 1 corner in this league. You start stacking Douglas and, Stokes and Jair. And if Douglas and Stokes have another step to take and can get to the level of greatness, man, this secondary looked the heck out for what they'd be able to accomplish at that point in time. So just to recap, my honorable mentions for, again, a variety of reasons: Preston Smith, Mason Crosby, Alan Lazard, Darnell Savage, and Josh Myers. And my 4 players that I think can legitimately make that jump this year from good to great: A.J. Dillon, John Runyan Jr., Rasul Douglas, and Eric Stokes. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.